What's up, everyone, and welcome into the Buffalo Sports Collective. It is Friday, February 24th, 2023. As always, I am PK alongside my co-host, Phil. Phil, I got a new setup for the podcast in here in my office. It's making me feel more professional, and I don't know how I feel about it yet.
All right, well, because we're not on video yet, are you going to have to describe what you got going down?
So I got an L-shaped desk now. I had to rework where my microphone goes, and the screen is much closer to my face, and I don't know if I like it yet because I got to dim the brightness.
That's fair. L-shaped desks are fun, though.
It is. I'm in a tiny little cubby, though, so I might have to relocate it to a different wall.
That's fair. But, I mean, you're going to step in the right direction for professionalism.
It is true. I'm looking more professional. Whether it's efficient yet, I don't know, but maybe I can post a picture and people can respond if I look more professional than my old setup.
There's got to be some kind of feed for awesome offices, and you can get some sweet do-it-yourself ideas for really making it as profesh as possible. And I think starting off by saying profesh and not using the full word, maybe having a sign up that says just, this is my profesh office, I think that really takes it up a notch.
I feel like I got to get a nameplate.
Oh, for sure.
Everybody that's profesh has a nameplate.
And obviously they have it at their home office that nobody else sees, just in case they forget their own name.
Just in case they have a Zoom meeting that they can have it in the background. But yeah, if you want to sponsor us and give me a nameplate for free, you can reach out to us on Facebook and Instagram at Buffalo Sports Collective and on Twitter at Buffalo Sports Co. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out our website at buffalosportscollective.com and check for the time breakdowns in the description of the show. Phil, before we jump into it, I will be traveling to Florida late Sunday and we'll be returning early Friday. So Sunday's show will be recorded early, and then that following Friday show, which will be coming out on the 3rd, will also be recorded on Sunday. So just preparing you all now that if some information that comes out on Friday is old information, that's why. So don't be those ninny muggins on the internet to complain, oh, why is this outdated? We're going to warn you now. We're going to warn you Sunday, and then I'm going to warn you on the Friday episode that this is pre-recorded. So for all of you that go on the Instagram and the Facebook and all that kind of stuff and say, oh, this is out of date. That's why. So listen to the episode and you'll understand why it's outdated, Phil.
Did you make an elf reference while we are currently iced over in the front yard, the backyard, and all driveways?
On purpose? Yes.
Dang. I was really hoping you just kind of threw a cotton-headed ninny muggins in there, and it was just what you were feeling at the moment, not on purpose, but it was all part of a ruse. I've been set up. But it was well played, I guess. It was well played. I mean, a little bit of a Christmas feel. And even yesterday, as we were getting toward the night and the freezing rain was just pelting the house, for a brief moment it felt a little Christmassy, and then it was pretty loud, if we're going to be honest. The ice rain was noisy, and at first I was trying to act like it was normal rain and it was, peaceful and kind of nice to fall asleep to, but it was louder than normal rain, and it was a little much, but I really don't have much of a problem falling asleep. So I made it.
Imagine if you had a metal roof too. That's got to be even louder.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of advantages to metal roofs, but it's got to be just deafening, I imagine, in that kind of situation.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like both of us don't have issues falling asleep. I can fall asleep in anywhere and any time of the day, no matter what. So I'm perfectly fine with getting a metal roof. Like you said, there's a lot of advantages to it.
I'm wondering how you're going to transition from a metal roof into the Buffalo Sabres.
Well, the Sabres moved around like they were a metal roof on Tuesday, and that's because they stunk, Phil. It was gross, and I guess metal roofs also can get gross because of all the weather that's here in Buffalo. But Tuesday versus the Leafs, I tried.
That's a tough one. That's a near impossible transition.
You have duds every once in a while. But yeah, Tuesday versus the Leafs. First big time Eastern Conference team that they faced in quite a while. They lost 6-3. And Quinn, Tuck, and Skinner were the only goal scorers. UPL was in the game for just 10 shots against, and he only made 6 saves. Anderson came in and relieved 17 of 18 saves. Shots were 32-29 in favor of the Sabres. Their record sits at 28, 23, and 4. But Phil, I'll let you go. But all I'll start with is there is no way I'm going to let them off the hook on this game.
Yeah, I mean, before looking at your notes, I had the exact same thought that you had a while ago. I mean, as we were just kind of preparing for this a few days ago, I was thinking about this game, and I felt very 50-50 in my mentality, and like half of me was on the aspect of kind of what we've been continuing to remind ourselves as a very young team. They're not really supposed to be kind of where they are. I mean, fighting for playoffs is what we were hoping for. Did we expect it to happen? I don't know. So they're kind of ahead of schedule on the rebuild. So like part of me was in the camp of this is going to happen. The team really isn't ready to take on teams that are simply that good. And then the other side of me is probably where you're taking this. And it's very fair because I also had this thought as well of just simply these are teams you're going to have to beat. I mean, if you want to grow as a team, this is a very big development game that you just got whooped by a team that is ahead of you. Yes, they are a more talented, more complete roster, but these are the teams you're going to have to fight and you're going to have to beat in order to make playoffs. And at this point, we know that this team can hang with teams like this. They've done it earlier in the season, and the Leafs, while a very good team, I don't think the way the Sabres played really illustrates how far apart the two teams are. I think they're much closer in talent than that illustrated. I think that game was kind of a blowout easily in favor of the Leafs, and the Leafs made the Sabres just look terrible, and I don't think they're that far off. I know the Leafs are better. I'm not saying the Sabres are in the same camp right now as the Leafs. They're a go-to playoff team, a cup contender, all that nonsense. So I'm not saying the Sabres are really anywhere near that, but the way the Sabres displayed on the ice versus the Leafs on Tuesday, I also don't think shows where the Sabres actually are in their development as a young team.
I agree with that last part. I have no concerns about the loss. I'm not worried about the actual loss itself. I mean, it's another loss in the loss column. You lost another game in hand over the teams ahead of you. It would have been nice to gain at least a point out of that. I'm not concerned about the standings aspect of it. They just weren't ready. I mean, you allowed 3 goals before the first commercial break. It was 6-0 in shots 8 minutes through. They scored 3 goals in 3 minutes and 23 seconds. I haven't seen a Sabres game like this in a long time, and I just can't toss this one out. It felt like the game to start was just too big for them. They felt like they weren't ready. They felt like they got punched in the face and just didn't have a counter punch. Those are the type of games where they just, for me, with a growing team like that, I don't want to see. And yes, it's going to happen every once in a while, but it's unacceptable in your own home when a arch rival of the Toronto Maple Leafs, who you're in the same division with and hope to be one day competing with them towards the top seed in the Eastern Conference with them, you can't get in there and have the doors blown off when people... I understand that Toronto took over. I understand that Toronto were able to kind of take over that arena, which typically happens. And then, even dating back to when the Sabres were really, really good, Toronto still got tickets and they still filled up the place. It's a close proximity. But it's just, I don't like how the team came out just so flat. That's not a team that I want to see moving forward, and I hope this is just a blip on the radar. But I've given them passes multiple times because they're a young, growing team. I just can't give them a pass here because of how they came out and just how flat they were. It's just, I didn't like that aspect of it. Again, I don't mind them losing to a better team. Just don't lose in that way.
I think the exact kind of mentality you're going with and thought on the game really showed through when Tuck scored and then when Skinner scored. It was simply way too little, way too late, but yes, you could see how fired up they both were to score. I mean, Quinn the first Quinn goal was kind of a, hey, the shutout's over. It was a good goal. I'm not saying anything against Quinn or anything. It was a good goal, but nobody cheered, in that little group of their celebration. They kind of all were like, yay, we got a goal. It's 6-1. Who the heck cares? Or 5-1 at that point. Sorry. And I don't think anyone, it was just one of those, this is a blowout, but thank goodness we got a goal. But then when Tuck scored, you could see how intense he was, how fired up he was, like, let's go, let's get this going. And then Skinner, exact same thing. He's like, we got 3 minutes, 30 seconds left. They was fired up. They were super pumped. At that point, it was 5-3. We're 2 away. Keep pushing. We can do this. But it was just, why was that not there in the first period? And you could even tell the goals they were letting in. I don't think this was anything against UPL. Maybe there was one that he would want back. I don't know. But for the most part, the defense just kind of stood there and watched Toronto go right past them on how many number of plays and pass right around them. They were all just kind of standing still, getting played around, and there was no intensity. There was no giddy up and go in the first quarter or first period, and that continued a little bit in the second, kind of switched a little bit, but you could really tell in the third when they started scoring those goals how fired up they were. But why was that not there right away? Like you said, they came out and they were not ready, and like you said, maybe it was simply they understand this team is more talented than them, is a better team than them, and they just got too big in their own heads that they can't hang with a team like Toronto. And as soon as they put some of those goals in, they started believing in themselves again, and then you could see it really start to turn on, and the team was finally starting to click, but it was way too late at that point.
Yeah, I think the other aspect of this that I want to talk about is if the Sabres truly, and I don't know where Kevyn Adams' head is. I think he is happy with where the team is growing, but I don't know if he's in the mindset to give it the full push and try to break this drought as much as, say, like the Bills were, where, hey, we're this close, let's go out and try to add a piece like Kelvin Benjamin to this team and try to improve. Now, Kelvin Benjamin didn't end up being anything, but they still made the move to try to break that drought and get over that edge. I don't know where Kevyn Adams' head is, so I'll just speak as if he is not planning on making a move. They can't keep relying on these 2 rookie wingers on the second line. I understand Jack Quinn scored. He's got 3 goals since like December. When was the last JJ Peterka goal? This is not a shot at them whatsoever. I mean, I think their development is coming along maybe a bit slower than we thought it would after their hot start in November and December. They've kind of tailed off, which is kind of expected. But if this team wants to try to leapfrog these teams that are in front of them, like the Washington, Detroit, Pittsburgh, Florida, New York, all the teams that are in front of them, I don't think that they can keep relying on 2 rookie wingers on the second line with Dylan Cousins to get them over that hump. I think they're just putting too much pressure and too much reliability. I don't think that's the real word, but too much. I can't figure out the right words to say. I'm blanking here, but I think they need to go out and get more secondary scoring to pull some of that pressure off of the 2 rookie wingers. You maybe even do what they did with Peyton Krebs. They sent Peyton Krebs down to the 4th line to work with Okposo and Gergensen. He came back. He's doing great now. I mean, he developed his game into be more of a grinder than what we thought he was going to be when he came here, but he's playing great now. Maybe do that with JJ Peterka. Send him down, bring Okposo up to the second line, get Cousins a little bit of scoring, which we know Okposo is not the same player that he was with the New York Islanders or even the start of his Sabres career, but he's still a 20-goal scorer from last year. You don't just lose that overnight, I don't think. So I think if you swap those 2 positions, bring Okposo up to the second line, break up those rookie wingers that are on the same pair with Cousins, get Cousins the scoring there, I think you can start chipping away at these players in front of them, unless Kevyn Adams wants to make a trade and bring in another depth piece, and every once in a while you got another piece to bench one of these, not bench, but sit one of these rookie wingers and take some of that pressure off of them. Because right now, if you're going to keep having to live and die by 2 rookie wingers on your second line, you're going to die more often than you're going to live, at least in this day and age where the teams in front of you keep adding pieces.
Yeah, and I think that comes down to 2 main things. First off, as far as Quinn and Peterka go, and like you said, not really trying to put them down. Quinn has 9 goals and 14 assists. Peterka with 7 and 12, and this is their first season. And just in comparison, Dylan Cousins' first season, he had 4 goals and 9 assists in 41 games, and even his second season, 13 and 25. So as far as their development goes, they're fine. They're on track. They're doing what rookies do. They're not, they're rookies that weren't first overall picks that are pretty much guaranteed to come on a little bit quicker. They're rookies that are developing, and they're doing perfectly fine with that. And that kind of leads to the second point, whereas if they don't make a move, the only thing I can think of is the mindset of this team. And I know as a player, I'm sure even as a coach, I'm sure this kind of mindset is near impossible to just kind of focus on and take away the aspect of making playoffs. But is this team so focused on the future? And exactly what you said, if you have rookies on your second line like this, you're going to die more than you're going to live. But if the team believes that's better for the future development of these two players, and that's what these players need to kind of take that next step and really push them the rest of the season, do they accept the losses with the bigger goal in mind of the future and what we can do in the future and kind of that aspect? Or, like you said, if they're really trying to push for playoffs this year, then I think I agree with you that that's a tough line for Cousins and even those players to be on. It puts a lot of pressure on them. It's a really tough situation for anyone. I mean, second line in the NHL is no joke, and there's not a ton of rookie second lines like that. And even Cousins, again, younger. I mean, it's only his third year, so I mean, he's still growing as well, and he's a very young player. So, I mean, he's not a rookie, but you have 3 extremely young players on a second line against a team's, number 2 defensive pairing and that second line oftentimes of the forwards. And most likely, more times than not, they're going to be better than what you're putting out there. So I think if the team wants to make a push, I agree with the idea of changing it up, mixing it up, getting a veteran on the second line to kind of help them along and, like you said, break up the rookie duo on the wings. But if they are so focused on the future, and not really saying that they're trying to throw the season away or anything, but if they believe that the future of Quinn and Peterka is going to be better if they stick with this and just kind of grind it out and let them make the mistakes and have them learn and develop, then I could see them doing that simply for a future development, prospect and idea. But I agree with you that if they're not going to make any trades and they want to really make a push, they need to break that line up a little bit if you want some more production.
Right. I think I'm just at the point where you're in a position you haven't been in so long. I completely understand, and I support the idea of looking towards the future. And don't hear what I'm not saying. I still think the future is very bright, and I personally don't think you're compromising any of the future by bringing in a guy who has an expiring contract that can help you get over that edge. Yes, I am actually in the camp of believing that you want your young players to experience this playoff race and to be a part of that and to see how hard and the play style you got to play to try to get into this playoffs. If you're adding a piece, I think I've said it multiple times, not only are you showing your players that you believe in them, that you can get over that hump and get into the playoffs, but it's also keeping you in the race where you want to be, where you want these players to experience that. If you're just sitting pat and you're going to keep relying on these two rookie wingers, they're either going to have to bloom and come out of nowhere and play like they did in November and December, or you're going to need your third and fourth line to step up and pick up the gap that your second line's not doing right now. So I don't see the harm in how it could set any of these players back by just bringing in another scoring winger to add to this lineup. I mean, you've been sitting Asplund, who is still a young guy. Where's the concern about his development? I mean, when he's played one game in like the last 2 months, I mean, why aren't you concerned about his development? Where's all that talk about that? It's what they pick and choose who is the players that they want to, talk about the future and developing and worrying about all this kind of situation. Yet you're sitting Asplund nonstop when he's still young. I don't know. Sometimes it feels like they're talking out of both sides of their mouth. It's a bit frustrating.
Yeah, I definitely don't disagree with anything you're saying. I'm all for bringing someone in, trying to push, these players, and I don't think it hurts the development either. I mean, I know nothing about hockey development, but at the same time, even bringing a different player in could help Cousins take that next step, could help one of the rookie wingers take that next step if they have another partner getting them a little bit more production, a little bit more confidence, and maybe knocking one of those two down to the third line. Maybe they'll perform a little bit better on the third line, but yeah, so I'm not against anything you're saying. And at the same time, I think exactly what you said about Asplund is kind of how the team feels about him. I don't think he's being used or developed because I don't think the team maybe sees him in their future, even though
mind-blowing.
Yeah, I do like him quite a bit. I know he's not a big point producer, but I mean, he's literally your future replacement for Gergensons or Okposo as a shut-down fourth line forward. So I don't understand that one either. But as far as the team goes, yeah, I am definitely not against bringing someone in. Even just looking at their roster, looking at after your top four forwards, the depth on this team is just not there right now. I don't know if that simply means that it's going to take a while for some of these younger guys to develop, and that's what they're eventually banking on, or if they plan to slowly bring in some free agents via trade or summer or whatever. But I would love to see some kind of trade to bring something in, even if it's not big at all, even if it's just a little bit of new life. I mean, look at what Yost has been able to do every once in a while with his role, knowing his role, and just bringing in something fresh to the team. I think sometimes this team gets a little bit stagnant. I'm not saying you're going to constantly rotate the roster over just to bring in a fresh face, but I feel like this team, especially the depth scoring, could use a big boost from somebody, and that could trickle down to affect and improve the entire team.
Yeah, and the trade deadline's coming up pretty quick, so they got to figure out this situation now. I mean, I'm just looking at Asplund now. He hasn't played since the 13th. Before that, it was the 28th of January, and in the 13th game, he played less than 9 minutes. For a guy that got a Selke vote last year, I don't understand how he fell out of favor so quickly. I think if I'm predicting the future, Phil, maybe if he's not part of your future, ship him out for a guy that can help out the second line, because I feel like other teams would see what he did last year playing against some of the top lines and being that shutdown center and fall in love with him. I think he's a great player. I think he's just being underutilized here for a team that, I don't know, is pretty stagnant the last few weeks. And again, I understand that because we've been here before. I'm just a little let down, Phil. I think the Tuesday game kind of shot my emotions down the drain a bit. But yeah, we'll move on to the BSC update. You might want to earmuff this one because I doubled up your score. I'm up 1876.05 to 1648.72. Again, doubled you up 11 to 5.5.
I had a nice little run where I was catching up, and
you did.
Now you're getting healthy again, and it's all over. It's all over. At least until the Bisons. Maybe I can catch up again.
I had the Tuck and Quinn game, which helped a bit. You need Skinner to step up, man.
It was nice to
Skinner
see him get a goal. I will admit,
it
was great to see him score again and even be fired up. And this is one of those games, and we kind of talked, I mean, I know we're moving on, but this is one of those games that we kind of talked about how the end of a game can trickle over into the next game. And hopefully with the Sabres and the way they picked it up in the third and the amount of goals they scored in the third, hopefully something like that can trickle over into their next game, which is another big one. And hopefully they come out a little bit quicker in this one. And hopefully that third period success can roll over to their game against Tampa.
Yeah, and I have that game on TV right now. The anthem is just getting sung, and that's why we're not talking about it right now. But we'll do our wild card watch right now. These are through Thursday, 7 p.m. 7th place, New York Islanders, 61 games played, 67 points. 8th place is Florida, 60 games played, 64 points. 9th place is Pittsburgh, 56 games played, 63 points. Detroit is in 10th, 56 games played, 62 points. The falling Washington Capitals are in 11th place, 59 games played, 62 points, and all the way down to 12th, but the least amount of games played at 55, 60 points. So if they can pull off the upset against Detroit here, Tampa on Thursday. So everybody here will know about this, and if they lose, they can rub it in my face. They can draw even with Detroit and Washington and still have 3 games in hand over Washington. They still got so many games in hand, Phil. They just got to, once again, I think I've said this on like 5 or 6 straight shows. You got to capitalize on the games in hand. But, I mean, it's a juggernaut of a test right now. You got Tampa on Thursday, Florida on Friday, and Washington on Sunday. 2 of those 3 teams are standing in your way from making the playoffs, so you got to take those teams down when you got the opportunity to face them. But Phil, with that, we will move on to the Buffalo Beauts. The Buffalo Beauts, Phil, are still alive and cooking in the playoff race. Saturday and Sunday they face Montreal. They have not faced Montreal, Phil, since we were at the game way back in November. It's been a while. Montreal coming in 7-12-1 with 19 points. Buffalo 4-12-2 with 14 points after their sweep of a series last week against Minnesota. Montreal coming in 2.25 goals a game for them. Buffalo is just behind them at 2.11. Montreal giving up 2.95. Buffalo 4.11. Power play. Montreal is coming in at 13%. Buffalo is 17%, and then the penalty kill is even at 86%. Phil, these teams are pretty similar, I would say, considering Montreal was an expansion team this year.
And this is going to be last weekend definitely was, but this is going to continue the culmination of what we were talking about of this team slowly getting better, and we saw improvements with every game they were playing, even though they were losing. Last weekend, they finally, like you said, proved us right for a little bit and had back-to-back huge wins against a really big team. But this is the kind of game where, like you said, the teams are pretty similar, pretty even overall. And this is the kind of game that if everything we were saying is true and they are really starting to make those improvements toward the back half of the season, then this is the kind of game that they're going to have to take over, win both, and prove that you are turning into the better team over some of these bottom teams. And just the teams slightly above you, but again, a little bit more even compared to Boston, Toronto, and Minnesota.
So some players to keep an eye on for Montreal: Jade Downey Landry, number 27, 7, 12, and 19. And Sophie Betez, number 24, 11, 7, and 18. Samantha Isabel, number 5, 3, 8, and 11. And Andrea LaBelle, number 13, 6, 4, and 10 on the season. They are not the highest scoring team in the league by any stretch of the imagination, but they can chip in the goals whenever, they see the opportunities. I think you need to lock down their top 2 players in Landry and Betez, and you got a great opportunity because I think, as I'm going to go into the goalies here in a second, you can put some pucks behind the goalies and score. We just need some of that goal scoring power to finally kick through. I think that's one of the things that has been holding them back since this, I wouldn't say resurrection, but since they've righted the ship a bit, is just the goals are not flowing yet.
I think we're starting to learn as we just watch this league a little bit more and the PFF in general and just kind of follow the Beauts that teams often have 1 or 2, maybe 3 top scorers that are really good. And then outside of that, it gets just thin pretty quick. And after that, it's usually more just a collection of everybody chipping in a goal here or there and not, more than a couple of really dominant players. And obviously we've talked about it with the Bandits a ton that when a team has a really good player, 1, 2, 3, however many there are, they're always going to get theirs. They're going to do a good job. They're the top players for a reason. Other teams have tried to stop them. Clearly they have pushed their way, found their way through, and they're the top for a reason. So they're going to get maybe a goal. They're going to get, a couple assists. They're going to get their points. But like you mentioned, it's all about trying to limit that damage as much as possible and force the secondary scoring for that team to really step up. And a lot of these teams don't have a ton of depth scoring. Again, it's here, there. They have a couple, like you said, Alexandra LaBelle with 6 goals. That's not nothing. So there is some depth behind this team, but if you can really shut down or limit the damage of those top 2, you're going to have a really good chance of winning both these games.
Yeah, their main goalie is Trisha Degois, I believe you pronounce it. 4 and 8 with a .917 save percentage and a 2.66 goals against. That is probably the goaltender that you're going to be facing. She's having a good season, but I think you you can beat this Montreal Force team. You did it earlier in the season. You won that game. Where is it? You won the game 2-3 in the second game, and you lost in the shootout that went 9 rounds, 5-4. I think this is an opportunity for a team that's sliding back. You're on a 2-game winning streak. They're on a 3-game losing streak. I think this is an opportunity where, yes, you just swept the series. It very rarely ever happens that you sweep another series, especially one that's on the road. I mean, this is the first time in their franchise history they ever swept a series on the road, and they've been around since 2015. So it doesn't happen very often, but you need to win both of these games in regulation to stand another chance. And I'll go down that breakdown because I spent half an hour on, I think it was Tuesday, trying to figure out exactly how the Buffalo Beauts can make the playoffs. And I sent a message and I went, I have a problem, guys. But I think this is a perfect opportunity for them to capitalize on everything that they've been building for, to keep proving us right. And that's the main sticking point here is, Phil, they need to keep proving us right, that they've been on the right track and improving recently. They showed it last week, and I think this is a great opportunity for them to prove it again.
I think, again, we just talked about it in the reverse way for this team to be able to shut down Buffalo's top players. But I think the biggest thing with that last game was MGM and Newton really starting to get going. We know that they are arguably the most talented on the Beauts, especially as forwards. It was just something that was going to take time for them, both new to the team this year, finding that chemistry, finding that line that works for them, finding that scoring ability, and just, again, it all comes down to confidence in yourself, confidence in your teammates. So with them starting to get it going, is that something that can once again roll over not only to this weekend, but the rest of the season? And can they really start to find the back of the net more consistently? I mean, they each got 2 last weekend, so can they do that again, if not more? And just see, what this team looks like if you have 2 players that the other defense needs to focus on. Does that open up lanes and opportunities for some of the depth scoring and some of the defense point shots that we've seen work so well for this team as well, and just kind of open up other assets of the offense as well as those top 2 really starting to get going? So I think everything kind of trickles down from the top, and hopefully Newton and MGM can keep it rolling.
Yeah, and you got to keep doing what you've been doing, limiting the shots against. And you can see what happens when you're able to do that. The games are much closer, and even last week you pull off the victories. So I think if you're able to keep them within, 30 to 35 is probably a good range of shots against, you have the puck more often. You're not chasing them around in the defensive zone, and you got the puck in their zone being a threat more often. So, Phil, with that, I think we talked this one to death. Is there any changes to your BSC team you would like to make and your team currently looks at? And let me keep scrolling over here and get to what your team looks like. You got Newtonin, McPherson, Kepler, Kramer, and Healy. I have Mentis, Dobson, Maud, Dove, and Medzika.
I feel like our teams were just drafted extremely well.
They were. I've made three changes. Yeah, 3 changes. So you drafted much better than I did.
Still made 0, and I still really like my team.
You've made 1. You've added McPherson because McDougall, who is now on Montreal, was released.
That was sad. That was a sad moment for my team. But McPherson has fought back, and we have come together stronger than ever. And Healy, loving it. She was quite a steal, in my opinion, and I had high hopes for her, and she's turned out great.
So no changes on your part, no changes on my part as well. So, Phil, now is the time everybody's been waiting for. How the heck can the Buffalo Beauts make the playoffs? Well, I'm going to go over it now. 4th place. They can't get to 3rd place, Phil. It's not possible. They can't get to 3rd place. Buffalo still has 18 possible points left on the table. That can get them to 32 points. They can only get up to the 4th seed. And remember, the top 4 teams make the playoffs. They need to get at least 16 of the final 18 points to at least where it stands now. Get in. And that's if the teams in front of you do exactly what they need to do. Connecticut, who is in 4th place right now, can only get 2 of the remaining 15 points. Yes, I know it's a stretch, and yes, I understand that the chances of this happening are very slim. But while the chances are still there, we're going to talk about it. So 4th place, Connecticut, 29 points. They face the Metro. Metro needs to win this one, so Connecticut stays at 29 points. Montreal is at 19 points right now. They face Buffalo, 2-game series like we just talked about. They stay at 19 points. Metro, 16 points right now. They face Boston and Connecticut. We need them to take down Connecticut, but also lose to Boston. So that gets them up to 19 points. Buffalo, 14 points right now. Like we said, Montreal, 2-game series. That gets them up to 20 points. So you will be down 9 points with 4 games to go. At the standings, if everything goes perfectly, that's what you're hoping for. Metro over Connecticut, Boston over Metro, and Buffalo both over Montreal. That's exactly what you're hoping for this weekend. Connecticut will have 29 points. Buffalo will then have 20, so they will have jumped the Metro and Montreal, who both have 19. Guess who they face next weekend, Phil?
Who do they face next weekend there?
They face Connecticut. So, Phil, we need the Beauts to go on 3 sweeps in a row. They need to take down Montreal and hope that Connecticut falls or at least loses in a shootout to the Metro on Sunday. And Buffalo then needs to take down Montreal. If both those things happen, Buffalo is down 9 points to Connecticut, who they face next weekend. So if they're able to take them down next weekend, they're 3 points back with 2 games to go. And I think Connecticut faces Boston. So, yeah, that's not looking great for them. Phil, I understand. I think I put it perfectly on Tuesday. I understand the odds are stacked against them, but the possibility of it happening is at least realistic in my mind.
And that's all we need it to be. As long as it's realistic in your mind, my mind, and the team's mind, then it's a realistic possibility. And again, like you said, it's a little bit out there, and it's going to be tough, but it is still possible. And after their big weekend sweep of Minnesota, which was more massive now than ever, but just in general, huge weekend sweep. I mean, they're playing with a little bit more confidence, and it is doable. And if they sneak into playoffs, my goodness, would that be exciting?
Yeah, and if this all comes crumbling down if Connecticut just beats the Metro on
hey, you don't speak that
Sunday.
Hey,
I know.
Don't you speak it into the universe.
I'm just saying, if they get to 30 points, it's all over, and it doesn't matter. Nothing I just put all this work into matters. But Phil,
that's really what you wanted to get out there, that all your hard work would be for nothing.
100%. This is all about me. I don't know why you're just realizing that 2 years in. But I added a new segment to the Buffalo Beauts coverage. I think we do it for the Bandits, so why not bring it to the Beauts forefront? I worked long and hard on this all day today. We're bringing the milestones from the Buffalo Bandits and adding it to the Buffalo Beauts here. Surprise, Phil. Here it is. Claudia Kepler, Claudia Kepler is 1 goal away from passing Emily Jenga. How would you pronounce that, Phil? Yaniga? That sounds legit. We're going to go Yaniga for 8th place in Beauts history. Again, we just started covering this team. I haven't looked at all their history. I'm still learning, guys. Be gentle. And then Cassidy McPherson, actually both these players are on your BSC team, is 1 assist away from passing. Oh man, Phil. Skamura? That sounds right. Haley Skamura. You should just start pronouncing all these teams' names.
I mean, you could have been right on both of those.
I could have been, but I'm probably not. In my Twitter bio, I changed it to I'm one half of the BSC, and I'm the one that always butchers people's names. So it's already out there in the public. But yeah, 1 assist away from passing Haley for 7th place in Beauts history. There was no way I was going to try to pronounce that name again. But 2 huge milestones for both of these players that are in reach this weekend.
It's up there with Nate K.
There you go. Haley S. and Emily J.
But I like the milestones. It's exciting. We get to follow some more milestones. They're always fun to kind of keep an eye on, and it's fun to track these players' development, not only in their personal careers, but also in the Beauts history. So exciting addition, sir. And I look forward to hopefully seeing some of these players move up in the history ranks. And
because the NLL and the PHF are a bit on the smaller side of the leagues, I couldn't find this type of information on their actual league pages. So I figure, why not just bring it here? Because maybe one of these players will start listening to us for whatever reason. We're just 2 idiots behind a microphone. Why would you want to listen to us? But if they are, they might not know where they stand in Beauts history. So why not add it to this segment? So I appreciate your kind words, Phil. That's why I keep you around as a co-host. But yeah, that pretty much wraps it up for this one. But Phil, the only segment we have left, and if you've been keeping track on our Fridays, is PK's Hot Corner. And I don't have anything sports related, so I'm going to come at this with a different angle. My hot take of this Friday is ice cubes are overrated. And here is why. One, they make your water or whatever you're drinking too cold. Two, they get in the way when you're trying to drink. Yes, you can put in a straw, but I never use a straw. They just get in my way and they hit my face and I don't like it. Three, they create... When you go to a restaurant or a drive-thru or anything like that, they create a way to give you less of that drink that you actually wanted. And four, they dilute the drink that you're drinking. So whether you're putting it in Pepsi or Gatorade or whatever you're going to put your ice in besides water, it's going to dilute it by adding too much water to it. It's overrated. I don't like it. I rarely ever use it unless something is warm and I'm really, really interested in drinking it right away. Otherwise, I'll just pop it in the fridge and drink it cold. I think ice cubes are overrated. I rarely ever use them and I rarely ever will.
All right, so two arguments here. One, you're making water an exception. Is that fair?
Water's the exception because you can't dilute it, but it still gets in your face and it's still for everything except for, it doesn't dilute your drink and it doesn't give you less than what you ordered. I agree with that, but it still makes your drink too cold and it still gets in your face when you're trying to drink just out of a cup.
Okay, so like for me, I use ice cubes in my lemon water bottle all the time, or if I just have water in it, I like to use ice cubes. If I know I'm going to be drinking that water like throughout the day, and it's not just a real quick one and done, like it's a bigger water bottle, and I know I've got throughout the day, I just kind of have a water bottle with me to be drinking water. I'll throw a couple of cubes in there to keep it super cold for me throughout the day, and I have a fun water bottle, so obviously the cubes in a water bottle aren't really getting in your face. So that's fair. Okay, that's okay. All right.
That's fine by me.
And the other exception, which I feel like, I don't know if counts as a straight cube in your description, because the way you're going at it, I agree with pretty much everything you said, I think. But the only other exception I guess I had was like ices/smoothies or things that you add ice to them and then is blended.
Blending is fine. I have no issue with that. It's like the actual cubes.
Right.
If you want to crush it, whatever.
It's different.
That's fine with me. I love ices. I love those kind of things. So I'm not a monster, Phil. Don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm not a monster.
You're not trying to
eliminate
I'm just
trying to rid the world
together
of these ice cubes that are just pointless and I don't like them.
Yeah, I remember our buddy Alex ages ago. I have no idea when he first gave me this life advice, but he also said the same thing you did, that if you ever order from a fast food place or something that, always ask for no ice or a little ice, because exactly what you said, they fill the whole cup with ice, then you get not nearly as much liquid, and then by the end it's also very watered down and gross, and you're only drinking half of it anyway. And even when you get it yourself out of the fountain, it usually comes out cold. So, and usually in that situation you're drinking it right away. So again, I might throw like literally 5 or 6 if it's like a really big drink that I know I'm not going to be chugging through in like 10 minutes, but I'm not ever throwing like a full cup or anything. Just like a couple cubes here, maybe like 5% of the drink is cubes that aren't really going to dilute it, but keep it a little chilled if you're on like a drive, you stop at a fast food place and you still have hours left on the drive and you're going to be milking that drink a little bit. I might have a couple cubes in there, but for the most part, I'm on Team PK against basic ice cube usage.
I wasn't expecting this. I appreciate you joining the right side of history, and let's try to continue this as we fight against the. If I were to grant, if there was a magic genie, and he was able to grant me 3 wishes, one of those 3 wishes at this point would be to rid the world of ice cubes.
That's fair. Again,
call me stupid. I feel like I'm doing a humanitarian good deed by ridding the world of ice cubes.
I feel like there still just needs to be those couple exceptions. But other than that, That's fair.
That's fine. I mean, there's exceptions to all rules.
Because you also need
I'll
cubes for when
be
you
alive.
go camping. Your cooler needs to stay cold, and you don't have a
Yes,
fridge.
but I'll put it like this: ice cubes in drinks that are not water.
All right, that's fair. If the genie can grant that, then I'm all on board.
It's not as hot of a corner as I thought it was going to be, and although I guess it is because there's no ice cubes, so I'll go with that. But Phil, is there anything else you want to add to this nice finish of a show before we shut it down for a Bandits-free weekend? But we got a few Sabres and Beauts games that are very important.
Big hockey weekend. It's going to be some ice fun. We got ice all over the place right now in Buffalo on the driveways, the lawns. Ice is covered everything. So go out there and play some hockey with your friends because it's going to be a hockey-filled weekend.
So on our next show, which again will be recorded very early on Sunday because I have a flight I have to get to go down to Florida for my vacation, we got the Beauts review and a Sabres review for at least 2 of the 3 games that are coming up on at least tonight when it's 1-1 with about 3:30 left in the first period, and the Friday game versus Florida, and maybe the Washington game on Sunday. So Phil and everyone else, thank you all for listening to another episode of the Buffalo Sports Collective. Follow along with us on Facebook and Instagram at Buffalo Sports Collective and on Twitter at Buffalo Sports Co. Visit our website at buffalosportscollective.com. Subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure you leave us a review on Apple and Spotify. Until next time, bye-bye.